This is Inside LAFC podcast, a brand spanking new episode. I am Max Bretos. There is Steve Beitashour. Look, not every show is going to be rainbows and unicorns, and certainly we'll get into what happened in Carson. But before we get into all of that, Beta, I got to ask you your reaction when you heard the news that the King is back. Carlos Vela coming back to the Black and Gold.
I was so excited. Put a huge smile on my face. For the people who
Still
don't
there.
know Carlos, I love Carlos as a soccer player, as a person, as a human being. Fantastic person, and so I was very excited to see him back with Black and Gold, where he belongs. So I'm excited to see him get going again. You know, he had a little vacation, and now it's all right. Getting ready for playoff time, which he loves. So I think everyone should be excited.
We followed it all on the social media handles, but we're glad to see him getting back to work. And we'll talk more about Carlos Vela. We have John Thorrington, co-president and general manager, as you know, of the club, to talk about how it all happened and what the expectations are for Carlos Vela this season and perhaps beyond. So stay tuned to that. And also a reminder, U.S. Open Cup final coming up next Wednesday. Go to LAFC.com. Make sure you're part of that to see the trophy lift. We'll see. We'll talk a little bit about that, preview the game against Sporting Kansas City. One game to do it. And you know what Beta's been saying all season? Get that one trophy, and there it is, right in front of you.
Yep. It's right there. One game at home. Come on.
Don't want to jinx it. We'll do it one step at a time. But you want to be part of that, another special night for LAFC. But let us start with what happened over the weekend, Beta. Some Carson complication. We'll put it mildly, I was there. It was electric. It really was an incredible atmosphere. The audio there is good. It was a packed house, well represented by the LAFC supporters in the corner, Black and Gold fans tailgating everywhere. It was another great episode for that, and LAFC got off to that quick start. But there are some things that LAFC have to iron out if they want this season to end well. That hopefully what we saw in that second half doesn't pop up again. It's one thing to lose a lead, but to allow 4 goals like that, obviously this is going to be a very challenging broken week because they have 2 games that we will discuss here on Wednesday and Saturday. But things that you have to resolve. Obviously, there was the international duty. We talked about the 6 guys away. That has a big effect, but there are things that have to be fixed.
Yeah, it was definitely a tale of 2 halves. You watch that first half, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, LAFC is going to do it. They're going to have the season sweep on the Galaxy. They just looked so good in that first half. They were compact. They defended well, and then they broke out. On the road, you can afford to give up the possession a little bit. Okay, Galaxy, you can have the ball. And I'm going into halftime thinking, man, what's wrong with the Galaxy? Like, they are struggling. Like, honestly, that first half was crazy. And then the second half, complete opposite. It was like, okay, now let's just flip scripts. You guys get to dominate, and then we get to do nothing. And I'm thinking, what's going on with LAFC now? It's that's, again, why you play the game. It's a 90-minute game. But there were some glaring issues that I think we might talk about that, LAFC has to start figuring out because it is getting close to playoff time, which I talk about all the time. Regular season, it's great and all, but everyone just wants to watch playoffs and what you do then. You just have to get hot going into the playoffs. So let's see if they figure their stuff out going in.
Yeah, we've seen LAFC, have results that probably bring in doubts, and they have responded. I know it happened It happened in 2022. It's happened in 2023 for sure. LAFC and Steve Cherundolo find a way. The lineup was like a 4-4-2, although Matty Bogusz would make it a 4-3-3 at times. So they were able to eat up that midfield, which is very talented. Marco Reus is the goods. You could see that certainly in the second half with Ricky Pooch. But there's going to be some formation changes along the way, no doubt, with LAFC. And it's one of those things you want to give the Galaxy credit, but there are those things that I think the LAFC can address personnel-wise. They'll get some rest along the way. But or at least adapting a little bit better during a game. I think there were some moments there where they saw what the Galaxy was throwing them, and they kind of just hit the same door a couple times instead of finding it. Maybe the subs could have come in a little sooner because they did have a very strong bench. And then obviously the red card is going to probably suck out any chance you have of making a late comeback, which they weren't able to do.
Yeah, for sure. The red card's unfortunate because then you kind of your hands are tied a bit, playing a man down on the road against a very good team against the Galaxy, and they had a lot of momentum. So it's tough when that happens. But there were some moments where, you're looking at the style of play that LAFC is so familiar with. And then I'm looking at Giroud, and he's a fantastic player. But again, I mentioned this months ago when he was coming in. He has to get used to LAFC system. We've seen unbelievable players come in, and if they don't figure out the system, it's difficult for them to do well, right? LAFC has a certain style of play that they like, a game model. And, that high press, high energy, I don't know if that fits Giroud very well. So, I don't know if they have to adjust to help him fit in, or if he has to, I had a couple months off. Let me get fit again, and then I can do that hard pressing, the dirty work, and making those runs and behind. Because right now it feels like it's a lot more checking and playing off of him rather than runs and behind when you have someone like Kike or Bogusz up there or Bouanga up there. So yeah, it's it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting what happens.
Well, let's talk about getting Giroud going. We saw that there was a moment. It was up. They were up 2-0, and then he turns, hits a great ball. It hits the woodwork, and the game would have been different. LAFC win that game if they're up 3 goals. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. We understand it. There were goals that the Galaxy scored that were, a little adjustment here, a little bit more attention, completely avoidable. And, just pressing, whatever it is, we can't look back at it. It happened. But, I think that's something positive for Giroud looking forward. It's, to me, I think you nailed it when we first talked about it. He just needs time to settle in. Now, LAFC, before his arrival, we had Bogusz as a false 9, if we can call it that. And Kai Kamara had some moments. So there are, there's going to be pressure on him to deliver. There were some moments, maybe he zagged when he should have zigged. I don't think it's a lack of effort. I don't think there's a lack of talent. To me, it's just it's an intricate system, certainly, and maybe something he's not used to. And they're gonna want to get him going towards the back end of this season and the postseason push. We were expecting this. I just think this Galaxy game, you hope to see it. I would have said that goal, if he scored it, would have changed everything, but that's the sport in a nutshell. I just think there's more timing, which maybe he hasn't had enough of, which he's going to get over the next couple of weeks, combining with someone, and certainly who can, and this is also on his teammates, to get him better service, to communicate on your front so when you're going this way, and he has to be in the right positions.
Yeah, and not to add more pressure to the final stretch. What is it, 7-8 games left? But this is why home field advantage is going to be so important for LAFC, because look at the style of play that they do home versus away. Away on the road, they're going to sit back a little bit further, right? And therefore, when you get it, that transition moment to the goal is a lot larger. And it doesn't suit Giroud, at least right now, to cover that distance. Maybe someone else, maybe a Kai Kamara or someone else that has a little bit more pace or is younger, that is willing to make those hard runs. Like Bouanga is no problem. He goes the full field, right, at a very high speed. But someone like Giroud, maybe you want to be at home where you have more possession. You're already higher up the field. And now he just gets in great spots. His movement off the ball in the box is phenomenal. His touch, his finishing, you mentioned it, that shot that he had that just absolutely wrecked the crossbar. Like, man, you see his quality. So it's going to be very important. Home field advantage, the next 7-8 games, to get home field advantage going into the playoffs.
Playing with Bouanga, because you said he is a deadline runner and he creates separation. That takes some getting used to from both players. Everyone, whether it's when we see Kike Oliveira coming back, who was not 100% ready to go from international duty, whether it's Matty Bogusz, those guys that will have to work on it. But we've seen them do this before. I did want to say this because I know people are upset, and that's a bad second half. And criticism should certainly be sent to the players and Steve Cherundolo. But they had a bad 45 minutes in 3 games with the Galaxy. And at the end of the day, they won 2 of the 3 matchups. And if you said that at the beginning of the year, you would take that all day long. This was a crucial game for the Galaxy, and they knew what was at stake, and they grabbed the ring, and give them credit for that. LAFC, 3 games since the end of the League's Cup where they've gotten 1 point, losses to Houston, the Galaxy. Obviously, that's not good enough. But this team is still in the position above where we probably thought they should be, competing, playing in finals. And we've got to support them all the way. And I've seen them bounce back, and I anticipate a bounce back. But I know that people being upset, let's pump the brakes a little bit. LAFC did what they had to do against the Galaxy. I know everyone's going to say, yeah, Max, you're the homer. But they did what they had to do. They won 2 of 3. And that's more than you can ask a team against a Galaxy team that, if you look at the standings, is tops in the West, second overall in MLS. Just wanted to get that off my chest.
Yeah, sometimes it's a blessing in disguise when you're out of the Supporter Shield race. I've been fortunate where I've won it 3 times, but all 3 times we were so focused on just, winning the Supporter Shield, right? Getting into Champions League and our Champions Cup. And it takes a lot of your energy. And then once you get to the playoffs, you're kind of like, man, that was tough. So this might be a blessing in disguise for LAFC. Like, hey, Supporter Shield is kind of out of the way. We're not going to get it anymore. Now let's just focus on being healthy, being fit, and just firing on all cylinders going into the playoffs, because that's the most important thing. Obviously, the Open Cup game against Kansas City at home, got to win that first trophy. And then playoffs, right? Win MLS Cup. That's the next goal. That's the next, okay, here's all my focus and energy going towards.
Yes, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is probably in competition for LAFC struggled early in the season, but this is right there too, this stretch of 3 games. But now you give them, just like you gave them before, just like you gave them in 2023, a chance to get well, which they've done every time under this coaching staff. So now they get ready for this week. Austin on Wednesday. They travel to Dallas on Saturday. We call that a Texas two-step. Willie Nelson, Texas. Okay, I'm not going to talk so much about the games, but I will say that LAFC have games in hand. If you look at the standings, we said the Supporter Shield is out of reach. They could still catch the Galaxy. They're 7 points behind the Galaxy, and they have 2 games in hand. But what happens afterward is where you have to be leery. I don't think you want to drop below second. LAFC at 48. Colorado, RSL are both at 47 points. They've played a game more than LAFC. Seattle's in 5th with 46. Vancouver, who have the same amount of games of LAFC, are in 6th with 45. Houston, who beat LAFC recently, has got 44 points in 7th. So from 2nd through 7th, it's separated by 3 points. I believe I'm setting a target with the 7 games remaining for LAFC. 3 are at home. If you win those home games, including at Austin, who are going to be a bit shorthanded, and in the other 4 games, let's say you get 2 points. Let's say you get 2 or 3 points, which is not a lot and well below what I think the expectations are for LAFC. If you win the home games, you get 12 points in these final 7, you're going to finish second. So I would emphasize, as you said, why home field is so important. If you can keep trying to catch the Galaxy, because being first is even better. But I think it's crucial that you're leery of what's happening behind you, because it's a lot of teams. And the good news is they play each other along the way, so they'll knock each other back a rung or 2. And that's why I say win your home games, you should be good.
Yeah, it's always funny when it comes to the final stretch, because teams are so close and, they're fighting for either playoff position or home field advantage or just to get in. Everyone's a little bit more timid, right? Now you see the defense clamping up. Now you see a lot more draws because, hey, maybe we're not going to push as many players forward and go for the win. And the other team's kind of thinking the same thing. So you see a lot more draws, which, again, it's not the worst thing. You're in a good spot. You're in second spot in the West. You just got to make sure the guys behind you don't really catch up. And again, health is the most important thing going into it. Health and confidence, making sure everyone's on the same page. Because I've had teams where we won MLS Cup, and I've had teams that we went to playoffs and we were just exhausted from just getting there. And there is a big difference with both teams and styles, and managers have a big part of that. I think Trundle has done a good job. We saw LAFC win it in 22, that they were firing all cylinders in playoff time, in the crunch time, right? And I think he needs to get that team with that same feeling. Look, listen, we need to get firing on all cylinders going in. Don't worry about standings, whatever. First, second, third, fourth. Top 4, we're good. So it'll be interesting what he does, with his personnel, with new acquisitions as well.
Yeah, Marlon Santos will be there. So this is good. Most teams are not doing what LAFC do. When you look at the players, going back to Lewis O'Brien, Olivier Giroud was a summer market pickup. Carlos Vela, who we'll talk about, and now Marlon Santos. They are making more moves, and usually that benefits the teams down the road. Remember, they finished third in the West, and they made MLS Cup, and almost were able to win it there at the end. So we'll keep it going. But second is there in front of them. Maybe they make the Western Final. I don't want to get ahead of myself. And the Galaxy aren't there. Maybe they get upset. So many things can happen. I worry about the Whitecaps because they're really good. 7 away wins. So that's a team that's at 45. Just we don't talk about. And they also have 7 games left. So I think they could be a big riser. LAFC's been good away. They're 5-5-3. So they've won as many as they've lost. And to say in their 4 away games that they're not going to get points would be naive. They are. They're a solid away team, better than average. So I would expect that. So if they can get 6 points in this week, that'd be great. But hey, if they get 4 points this week, that'd be great. So it all starts with Wednesday. We'll see where they go. And just get the bad taste. You got to put that away. I wonder how much they watch. I'm sure they're going to look at things in that second half, but not dwell on it too much.
Yeah, you're going to watch. You always want to watch and learn and get better. It's teaching moments, right? But to go back to what you're saying about Vancouver, kind of right on the tail. Man, did you see that second goal they scored against San Jose? That thing was a beautiful team play, 1 touch, third man run, 1 touch, slipping guys through it. It really looked like LAFC, and it just kind of I kind of stepped back. I was, man, there's a lot of good teams right now. I know we didn't say this in the beginning of the year, but there's
exactly what I was going to tell you.
Teams in that, that 2 to 6 range. I still like Houston a lot. I think Houston's a very good team. And what are they in 6th? I like Vancouver. They've made some good pickups recently, and they're playing well. Colorado, man, look at Colorado. What are they in 3rd place right now? Right behind LAFC. They're a team that's just Jordi Mihalovic is a fantastic player, and they're just bought into the system with Chris Armstead. It's going to be interesting. I'm actually really excited for this final stretch and going into the playoffs to see who comes out on top.
If you're a neutral, you're loving this. People were critical of expanding the playoffs, and maybe 9 teams is too much. But right now, the 9 teams in the West all are 500 and better. 8 of the 9 teams have winning records. So they're all good. And that top 7, all exceptional. They're all playing very well. And to your point, you don't want to, you say, who do you want to avoid? I think you really don't want to rush into a matchup with any of these teams.
No. Everyone's firing well. So it'll be fun. It'll be exciting. For the neutral, this is the best.
We may not be able to preview the U.S. Open Cup in its full next week because it's on a Wednesday. We record this on a Tuesday. So we want to get a little bit into this today. And a reminder to get your tickets to be part of this. You'll never forget it, especially if they win it. We're not going to say they're going to win it. They're going to be favorites over Sporting Kansas City. And this is it. They benefited from a reconfigured U.S. Open Cup, but this was a strong performance to get to the final. But this will be the toughest test. They're facing a Sporting Kansas City team. This is their season. You can't say that about LAFC. They have an MLS Cup to win potentially down the road. But this is it. They're not making the playoffs, Sporting. So that's going to make – what is that how do you approach a game like that? Knowing the pressure of LAFC because you've lost the final, and since MLS Cup 2022, you've made all these finals, which is great. But you need to win one of these. There's pressure there. And then against a team that has everything, really nothing to lose. They do have something to lose, but they're putting all their chips in this.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough matchup against Kansas City side, who you already mentioned it. They're out of the playoffs, right? They've nothing to play for except for this. This is their MLS Cup playoff. But to be fair, this is a trophy, right? Peter Vermees, their team always fights. They always do well in cup matches, right? I think they've won 3 Open Cups.
4. They would tie the all-time, and I think 3 under Vermees.
3 under Vermees. They've won an MLS Cup with him. They know how to show up for these cup finals, right? Yeah, this season is not going well. I think they underperformed like crazy. No one thought this was going to happen with the type of quality they have on their team. But at the end of the day, it's one game, and this is why I always say you can get lucky and win MLS Cup. You can't get lucky and win the Supporter Shield. Okay, it's one game, so I would tread lightly. I'd be very cautious if I were LAFC. I know in the standings they're way down there, but you better bring your best foot forward and come out ready to fight, because a Peter Vermees side is always ready to give you a tough little battle. So
Yeah.
it's going to be a good game, and so hopefully everyone shows up and is cheering on LAFC, because they're going to need a little extra energy. Anytime you're playing a team that's lower in the standings, it's so weird how I think normal people, but athletes think like, oh, this is going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. I'm telling you right now.
Beta never thought that way. He probably went in the locker room. Don't underestimate these guys.
I want to say I said that, but I'm sure I felt the same way. Like, guys, we should beat these guys. You can't help but look at the standings. It's going to be tough. I think it's just human nature.
It's a tricky game because they have a great coach. They have good talent. They've just underperformed. They're going to be busy, although they'll probably be able to rest some guys over the weekends, knowing that this is what happened. They are coming off a loss against Seattle away. The good news is at home, so be there. And if you can't be there, it's available on Apple TV Wednesday night, 7:30 Pacific time for the Cup. We're looking forward to that. So let's talk about the good news. Carlos Vela coming back. The return of the king. Oh! And again, this is
Carlos.
This was announced by LA. It was, the news got out at the end of last week and it went viral. I was like, I wish we had all this news and we could do that, but we know that LAFC has to sign all the paperwork. So that news gets out and they have to do things internally. And then they released it on Monday and it still went viral. The LAFC social media accounts, the news that this is big in Mexico, it's big in Spain because of the time Carlos Vela, it's big in the league. Everyone knows. I think everyone in Major League Soccer gets excited about Carlos Vela, and this certainly was part of it. I'm excited. We don't know. I mean, for me, there's an option for 2025. We'll talk to John Thorrington about that. It would be great if he could continue. It's going to be tough for him to get into playing shape because this is a team that is a meticulous fitness level as is. So he's going to have to play some catch up there. We have these reports. He has been working on his own to get into shape. I mean, it'd be impossible for him not to show up and not be in some kind of decent shape. So he has obviously been working on this. If it's just for this year, Beta, it's awesome because when you talk to LAFC supporters, they felt empty because they couldn't say goodbye. And I know that's something that's left a void in Carlos Vela because, that Vela couldn't say goodbye and that the supporters couldn't say thank you. And now they get a chance to do that. Whatever happens, maybe he comes in and has a couple moments of magic. My guess is he will. Whatever happens, he gets to say goodbye at some point this year or next. And the fans get to say thank you. And that to me just makes me feel good because it gives us that opportunity as well. And that's the way it should be.
Regardless of what happens, the remaining 7 games, including playoffs, at least he will be able to say goodbye. Fans will be able to say thank you, because at the end of the day, what he did for LAFC and for the league, no player has done that. No player has scored a goal a game, 34 goals in a season. Are you kidding me? That's insane. And the type of person, I mentioned this earlier, the type of person that he is to his teammates, to everybody around him, to staff, he's such a good person, humble person. And he's always, regardless if you're one of the starters, one of the bench players, he hangs out with everybody. He's such a good guy. And so I'm excited that he's back. I want to see more of him. He's still 35, 36. He's still not that old. I think he can give more, not just this year. I think he can give more even next year. Yeah, he's not going to start every game and play the amount of minutes that he used to, but even if he gave you 20, 30 minutes at the end of each game, let's just say there's 10 games left. Would you be surprised if he got 10 contributions? So 5 goals, 5 assists? You wouldn't be surprised. That's incredible. That's incredible numbers. We're talking about Colorado Rapids doing well. Jordy Mihalovic has, 10 goals, 10 assists an entire season. In 10 games, this guy, I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Carlos Vela had 5 goals, 5 assists. That's how good he is. That's his quality. And so I think it's a good thing for both sides. And regardless of what happens, if you win trophies, if he does amazing, the fact that he can come back and he helped LAFC from the ground up build an incredible organization, incredible club, I think it's good for him to be able to have this final moment and for fans to say goodbye if this is the last dance.
Yes, if.
Yeah.
You mentioned Carlitos, the teammate. You were able there. What made him so special? You touched on some of those things, but those things that you say, oh, man, I'm glad he's there. And look, to me, he makes me laugh all the time. I mean, he has a levity about him, and he puts me at ease, which I imagine that he does the same for the players. If there's an intense situation, he's the same Carlos. What was it with those things that stood out for you?
I was fortunate enough to play with some very, very talented players throughout my career. And Carlos still is one of my favorite players and people, the combination of both, because he was an incredible player. We all know this. I don't need to talk about that. But his personality, you know, as a fullback, anytime I'm talking to my midfielders in front of me, and, you know, almost 99% of the games he's playing right in front of me, I try to organize. I try to get you in good spots. And some guys just, you know, F you off. They're like, no, like, I'm not doing this extra running. He never did. He always held himself accountable. And he was like, you know what? You're right, Beta. I'm sorry. You know, I was in the wrong spot, or I didn't track back. I apologize. And he would always work, and he'd always have this humility about him. You know, he didn't call me Steven. Let's get that straight. He only he yeah, that was a funny story, but yeah, he
doesn't know your name is Steven. Probably he just says
your story. If you guys don't remember, on Beta Time we talked about this when Bob, for one of the first trainings we had together in 2018, said Steven, and he looked around. He's like, give Steven the ball, and he looked around. He's like, who's Steven? He's like, Beta. He's like, oh, Beta. I thought your name was
that.
It's still one of my favorite stories about Carlos.
It's a good one.
He even to this day jokes around. Steve, what's up, Steve? It's good. Yeah.
Look, we'll be at training, and just to see him is going to fill me up and joy, and whatever that translates to with the club. It's going to be amazing. A favorite Vela memory. I want to mention this, as I got to call the game where he broke the record. He smashed the record. And right now, Denny Bouanga could win back-to-back Golden Boots. He has 17 goals. Christian Benteke is having a huge season. He has 19. So the Golden Boot, for guys who've scored a lot of goals, Luis Suarez has 17. You're probably looking at 24, and that's on the high end. I don't think anyone's going to ever score 34 in a season. No. It's hard to believe that happened. Joseph Martinez had 31 the year before, and then Carlos Vela tied it, or 32, tied it, and then he was at 31 tied, and then he just made sure no one would break this record. I almost could feel confident saying no one's going to break it. I can't believe it. It's hard to document all the goals he scored there. 34. No one even gets close to that anymore since, and I don't think anyone is. That's my favorite moment.
Well, the more incredible part to the 34 goals was the number of assists that he had. It wasn't just like he's scoring goals, not contributing anywhere else, not working hard, you know, not just taking penalties. Sometimes you see a lot of goal scorers and they have a lot of penalties. He was doing it all. He was hitting shots outside the box. He was hitting shots inside the box. He had some free kicks. He had some penalties. He had a ton of assists. He was doing it all that year. And that's why we had such an incredible year in 2019. When your best player is willing to work hard like that and work for the team, I don't think you'll ever see another season by a player like that. It was incredible, and I'm fortunate that I was, you know, behind him most of those games and just watching in awe, like most of the fans were in the stands. It was amazing.
A favorite memory for you when you played with him?
You know, there was a lot of favorite memories on the field, off the field. I mentioned the one where for the first time he's like, Steve, who's Steve?
That's a good one, man. I would put that at the top.
You know, after games, sometimes you have big wins. Him, Jordan, and I, we go to, you know, Vancouver was a fun place to go. The casino's right there because Vancouver, the hotel has a casino in it. So we'd go play roulette and stuff together. And it's just funny. Jordan and I are just like laughing. We're at the roulette table and he's just winning. We're like, this guy wins at everything he does. It's incredible. And he's so humble about it. Just like, guys, after he wins, let's go out. I got dinners on me. Let's go. And like, he just treats the boys. He's just a good person. And I love Carlos on and off the field. So I'm happy he's back. It's good. He needs to be back.
We're all happy he is back. So enjoy it to everyone listening that loves LAFC. I'll finish with this. that he came here and he said he was going to win a championship, and he did. He did in 2022. So welcome back, Carlos Vela. Good stuff, Beta. We'll be back. It's going to be a good pod next week. I have a good feeling.
Yes. Good vibes.
It was a good pod today, but it's going to be even better next week.
Yeah. Good vibes. I like it. Always good seeing you, Max. Thanks.
Good to see you too, Beta. We will return on Inside LAFC podcast. We will be speaking to John Thorrington, co-president, general manager of the club, to talk about how Carlos Vela coming back happened. This is Inside LAFC podcast.
Inside LAFC podcast is presented by Freeway Insurance, driving savings.
Welcome back to Inside LAFC podcast, joined now by John Thorrington, co-president and general manager of LAFC. And Beta's my co-host here. And I mentioned Carlos Vela was coming back, and the guy lit up like a Christmas tree. Big smile, mentioned about how great Carlos is a teammate, how great he is as a person. Your reaction when this got finished?
Yeah, certainly satisfaction. I think that response you saw from Beta was really great to see that at the Performance Center yesterday when Carlos was back for the first time, and certainly some new faces, but a lot of history there with all of the staff from last year and even in previous years. So it was really good to see. I think it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyways, that Carlos has been the most impactful player in our history, and it didn't feel right not having him around. And so I was certainly really pleased on Friday, just ahead of the deadline, when we were able to get to the deal and welcome him back.
Didn't feel right to have him around, but at some point, because I know I asked you many times, and I'm sure supporters and people asked you, is Carlos coming back? And at some point, it had to look like it may not happen, but it did. So how did it get done here?
Yeah, I think there was a desire. I know there was a desire on our part and on Carlos's to continue for a number of reasons. We couldn't quite find common ground January, February, but then when the circumstances changed this summer and we were able to get there, we certainly moved quickly to do so. I think the reason there was this uncertainty around what was happening is because we were hopeful he would come back, and so we stayed in regular touch with his representation and what have you. And then once the path was there to get to a deal, then the conversation took on a more formal tone in terms of trying to work this out. And so we're really excited to continue our relationship with Carlos.
I speak on behalf of everyone. Everyone's very excited to see this roll out. How do you see his assimilation into the club? Because obviously this team is in end of season form. He'll have to play some catch up, but how do you see him break back into it? And perhaps how soon can we see him on the field?
Yeah, I think for us, he's back in now. I think he has kept himself in relatively good shape, but there is no replicating the demands of daily training and games and what have you. So we'll see. I think this first week will be informative in terms of what the path to Carlos contributing on the field, how long that will take. I don't think we have that clarity after one day, but we'll certainly be pushing as fast as is reasonable because we still feel like there is something for him to give and to help give our team a boost.
For 2024, there's this moment where Carlos Vela can come back and finish. Many people feel finish what he has done for so long with this club, and the supporters can say thank you along the way. But there is an option for 2025. What are you looking for in this body of 2024 to perhaps pick up that option next year?
Yeah, I think the conversations with Carlos is great to have you back. Let's now focus and see how quickly we can get you back doing what you love doing, which is out there playing, and the interaction and the connection he has with the supporters in the stadium and what have you. So we hope to see that as soon as possible, but we're also under no illusion that it's going to be immediate. We think it's going to take a bit of time. How much time, as I say, I don't think we quite yet know, but Carlos will be working hard. And I do think for us, the key part to all of this is that we just do this the right way and honor, we look forward with Carlos to moments ahead, but it's also in part honoring his legacy and the impact that he's had on everybody at LAFC.
His role, because it's going to be different because Carlos has always been the leader, but he's, as we said, he's joining a team that's already well into the stretch run here of 2024. How do you see him contributing?
Well, I think you already see, even though he wasn't in full training with the group, he's just a very well-liked teammate. He always has been. I think throughout his career, I think that's been a bit misunderstood, his personality. But when you talk to his teammates, he's a really likable guy. It's a breath of fresh air having him back. I think guys were so excited to have him. So you're already seeing a positive aspect of him being back, even though it's not necessarily with him in full training and what have you, which we do hope will come. But I do think there is only one Carlos Vela in the history of LAFC. So he has a unique standing within the club and within the group of players that, you could see yesterday. They were all smiles, and you said you saw it even with Beta, who played with him 7 years ago or whatever it was, that he just has a unique standing with LAFC. And so for staff and for players to welcome him back was a really cool moment yesterday.
Beta saying not just one of the best teammates, but one of the best people he's ever been associated with. And yeah, I to editorialize a little bit, just the time I've spent with Carlos, I missed him, and he was the levity he brings, and the moments, the functions that we had, it means a lot. I mean, I feel it in my belly, John, and I know for you too, the man who signed Carlos Vela from the beginning, and he achieved all these things that he said he would, and then some. For you personally, I mean, this has to be satisfying to know. I mean, it's going to make so many people happy, but for you to bring it, I don't want to say closure, but because of the what we didn't expect here this year, how does that leave you feeling, knowing that you've been able to bring him back? Yeah,
I do think closure is pretty close to the right term. It didn't feel right, I think, and so it certainly feels. I'm certainly grateful. I think there is. Maybe, I hope this isn't the case, but I do think, based on some of the questions I've had, I think there is this misconception that there is no emotion involved in, this role and these decisions. And certainly there are times where there are really tough decisions that have to be made, which are horrible. But there is, I am a fierce protector of LAFC's culture. And I think we are not necessarily unique, but certainly something that I believe is very much inculcated in our culture is that we are a family club. We really deeply care about all of our people, whether that's staff, whether that's our players. And so it didn't sit right. And so there are emotions involved. And so for me, having known Carlos and done the original deal, the first big deal we did, it was the middle of 2017. And to have gone these few months in a little bit of limbo, again, didn't sit right with me personally, which is what you asked. So now, whatever happens in the future, I'm just grateful that now Carlos is where he's meant to be, which is at LAFC.
We don't know how these next couple months or next couple months in a year will play out, but the Vela legacy to this point, how have you seen it? What does it mean to you? And what does it mean for this club?
LAFC is not what we are without Carlos Vela. I think that is absolutely clear to me, and I think to anybody who has seen. I do not think there will ever be another season like he had in 2019. I do not think there is a Yeah, look, I mean, there's certain recent examples. The only thing I can even compare it with is Messi in terms of the impact he's had at Miami. But that also was different because Miami already was a club. Like for LAFC to establish itself, I'm not taking the credit for this, but what the club has done, I always said when we were signing Carlos that we need to get the foundation right. Like for any building to what we're building to be what we want it to be, we have to get the foundation right, and we need a cornerstone. And you're that guy for us. And had we got that decision wrong, or Carlos did not deliver to the level he did, we would be in a very different place as an organization. And so, to me, what I've always said is, I hope LAFC is not just like a part of the growth of MLS, but is a driver of the growth of MLS. And that when people think back, okay, well, how did we go from here to here? They think, yeah, well, LAFC was a driver of that. And how did they do that? It's because of the team we have. And I think the first person you think of when you think of that team is Carlos Vela.
It was an ambitious signing at the time, but I can imagine even you could have never thought it would have worked out this well. What Carlos Vela was able to do.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, was I predicting an unprecedented season that will never be replicated, in my opinion? No. Were we hopeful as a staff when we said, okay, who is that guy that is going to set the tone as to who we want to be on the field and also connect with our supporters and the city and what have you? We could not have done better than Carlos. And I think we did have very lofty expectations. And I think you mentioned this earlier. He exceeded them.
He almost guaranteed. He said, we're going to win a championship. And he backed that up. I just want to go back to what you said earlier, because we talk about the black and gold standard. And it's there now without Carlos this past year. We've seen it's been maintained. And that it has to be the handiwork of what he's been able to do and things that we'll be able to feel with this club 5 years, 10 years, 20 years later.
Yeah, I think you want to have a team, a group of players that wants to leave their mark on LAFC, and we've even seen, players that were a part of our original team that now are working at the club. And I think for us to have players who really think about the legacy they're leaving and not just care about LAFC while they're there and then they go on and do something else. But Carlos, I think, is an example whose career now is such an integral part of LAFC that he also is invested in seeing not just, well, he's here, but what the club will do long into the future.
Do you have a couple Vela memories you can share with us, things that stood out, maybe off the field or certainly on the field, that you say that will be with me forever?
Yeah, I think it was funny yesterday. I think this, which probably frustrates people like you, but I'm not like on the pulse of social media and what have you. But I was looking up something and I went to look, and there was like a highlight reel of Carlos and the welcome back that I clicked on, and I was watching. And I made this joke with our staff is his ability. I was like, the only thing that changed with these goals is you had to like see who was in goal. It was like the same goal over and over and over, and it was just the goalie had changed. So all of those memories, obviously lifting trophies together has been, a remarkably satisfying thing that he certainly helped us to do and was the one lifting the trophies that we've had. I do also remember his announcement, and we were there at Christmas Tree Lane, and like the flood of people that were there in 2017 to welcome him. And I just remember him like beaming, and this might be PG-13, but I don't actually even know the exact translation, but he gets up on stage and everybody's chanting his name and he just says, "Este es chingón." And like, it was just such a cool, spontaneous moment for him to just be like, this is effing awesome. Where I think he really saw what LAFC was going to be and the appreciation that the supporters had for him, which then obviously long continued into, throughout his time on the field here. But yeah, I mean, the memories, the titles, the moments in training where he would just do something that you just say he is just gifted on another level. Those are countless. The trophies, and then just the memories and seeing him play with a smile on his face and bring that out in the group. It's been too many memories to count.
Well, I appreciate being around for all those, because 2018 was a while ago, and I know when you watch those videos, he is the one constant, and the teammates have changed. You'd see Benny Feilhaber, and then you see Denny Bouanga. You wish he could play forever. We know that's not possible, but just for that important stretch for the club to have that constant, I think is wonderful, and enjoyed those highlights as much as you did. John, we can't wait. This is just a thunderbolt of news, and it's made a lot of people very happy, and we look forward to seeing Carlos at the stadium, addressing the fans, and certainly getting on the field again. Well done, my friend.
Thank you.
John Thorrington joining us here on Inside LAFC Podcast. Big week. Get ready. Don't forget about the Open Cup next week. It's all in front of you. We'll be back here next week to wrap it all up on Inside LAFC Podcast and preview again. Rate, review, download, subscribe, tell a friend. We will see you soon.